Good evening, everyone. I hope you all are doing well. And I would just like to request you all that please wait for 5 minutes until more people join us and we are in a position to start the webinar. Just 5 minutes. Guys, be patient for another few minutes as the guest speaker will be joining us very soon. Everyone, the guest speaker is here with us and then we'll be starting with in another 1 minute. Good evening, everyone. I'm Payal Bhardwaj, and it's my absolute pleasure to welcome you all to today's webinar, Unlock Your Potential Navigating Law School. This event is proudly organized by Punjab Legal Rights Consortium, a subsidiary of Women's Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, through the National Legal Rights Consortium. At PLRC, our mission is to advance legal awareness, education, and advocacy for justice. We are committed to empowering individuals by promoting awareness of legal rights, providing support, and creating a platform for meaningful engagement in the legal community. For those eager to join this mission, I'm delighted to announce that application for PLRC membership will soon open for the upcoming year. Joining PLRC means becoming part of a dynamic community working to champion legal rights and make a difference. Keep an eye out for registration link and updates. Another initiative of is our bi-monthly newsletter series, which provides insightful updates, thought-provoking articles, and in-depth analysis. Each edition explores diverse themes that resonate with current challenges and opportunities. Our first newsletter, released in August, centered on modern Punjab, its pressing challenges, including social, cultural, and legal issues unique to the region. The second edition, published in October, delved into legal problems in Punjab, offering an analytical perspective on the region's legal landscape. The third edition, slated for December, will focus on human rights, women's rights, and access to law, a topic that promises to inspire action and reflection. We also encourage contributions from passionate voices like you in our community. In our last edition, we invited submissions through email, and we're excited to continue featuring the work of talented individuals. If you have ideas, we'd love to include them in our upcoming issues, and we encourage you for that. Now, let's focus on why we are here today. Law school can feel overwhelming, right? It's same for all of us. There's uncertainty, moments of self-doubt, and countless questions. But every challenge presents an opportunity. But today's session is about untangling those doubts and helping you unlock your full potential. We are honored to welcome Advocate Dhruv Srivastava, a distinguished corporate lawyer specializing in dispute resolution, contract management, and more. Sir has graciously taken the time to share his insights, guiding us on navigating law school effectively and building a successful legal career. After his talk, we'll have a live question and answer session, giving you the opportunity to get your pressing questions answered directly. Finally, I'd like to pass the floor to Nishtha, the president of PLRC, who will give a formal introduction of our esteemed guest. Please, Nishtha.
Thank you, Payal. Good evening, everyone. So today we have the pleasure of introducing a very special guest, Advocate Dhruv Srivastava, a corporate lawyer whose expertise spans dispute resolution, contract management, transactional advisory, and due diligence. Currently serving as a legal consultant at Clifford Chance Business Services Private Limited, he brings a wealth of experience and a deep understanding of the complex legal and commercial landscapes. His legal acumen is evident not only in the comprehensive counsel he offers to clients across diverse industries, but also through his impactful achievements. Notably, his first case and filing in the Delhi High Court became a leading landmark judgment, setting a new legal precedent. Against all odds and without favorable precedents, he and his team, they explored every possible resource both domestically and internationally to ultimately secure a groundbreaking victory, a story worth reading and celebrating. In addition to this milestone, Advocate Srivastava was appointed as a local commissioner by the Honorable Delhi High Court in an IP infringement case. His dedication to the legal profession is further reflected in his role as a judge for the South Asian rounds of the prestigious FDI moot and various other moots, where he assessed budding legal talent and great insight. What makes him special for this webinar and why he's perfect for our session today isn't just his impressive career, but his story of both perseverance and grit. And even personally, I have had the chance to interact with him and chat with him. And trust me, he is as humble and down to earth as a person can be. And his journey is a real reminder to keep going no matter what. And while we are talking about law and related things, I would just like to share with you that he also proves that life does not have to be all black and white, because out of his work world, he is also passionate about music, sports, fantasy, and fiction. And so he's genuinely got a very colorful personality that kind of lights up the room. So please join me in welcoming our special guest, Advocate Dhruv. We humbly welcome you, sir.
Hi, Nishta. Nice to see you again. First of all, thank you everybody for joining in, and my sincerest regards to the committee for extending the invite to me to PLRC, if I'm getting it correct. Uh, anyway, guys, I mean, thank you, really thank you for all of you for joining. I mean, I'm not as great as Nishta has just made me out to be, but yeah, I mean, apart from that, I just do my best to, just make the most of everything which has been provided to me. Uh, because being in a law school, I know it's very intimidating to get a job, and even in participating in competition, the nerves, balancing the lifestyle, peer pressure, and if your friends are outshining you, how to perform in such situations. So I've been through all of that. I mean, technically, I was exactly in the COVID batch, which had faced a lot of issues when it came to jobs. But yes, I mean, it's an honor for me to be here, and I would like to, cover and field all of your questions. And you can ask me questions in Hindi or English or whatever language you're comfortable in, and I'll answer it to the best of my ability. I don't mind switching to Hindi also if you want me to answer your question in Hindi. So that's also something I can do. But I would like to cover certain topics or field some questions today from you guys, which would be regarding law schools, the competitions, any particular skills which you feel is needed in law schools and competitions, any particular skill development which you're looking for, and how to hone that skill, and any real world insights if you want to ask me. So I'll be more than happy to ask those questions. So on that note, I mean, just feel free. I mean, if there's any question you guys want me to answer first, and I'll get that started.
Thank you, sir. So, to begin with, balancing law school and academics can be challenging along with your personal commitments as well. So,
Mhm.
what strategies did you use to maintain a balance between academic demands and personal life during your time in law school?
See, one thing which I've come to recognize after I've judged a lot of competitions and I participated in quite a few. So one thing which I realized that competitions while you are in law school feel very important. I mean, I'm not saying or I'm not taking anything away from them, but somewhere in India they just are something which people do for glory. That we have won this and we have won that, and if you actually use the competitions to your advantage, if you use the topic which has been provided to you, let's say if I use FDI, which you mentioned in my introduction, so that translates to foreign direct investment, and the moot is an arbitration moot. So it's not that you should just limit yourself. If you actually enjoy doing it while you are preparing for that moot, you should not just limit yourself to what the moot problem is. You should actually try and go above and beyond and understand what FDI basically means, and what will its impact be, and how does it translate into a local legislation, or what is the challenges which is faced during its implementation. So when you're doing all of those things, you actually refine yourself, and if refine your skills subsequently, which help you, I believe, in making yourself better. And if you want to pursue that as a career field, then it would help you. I mean, not just saying that and I've done an international moot help you in any sense get a job, or uh, or you should basically know the reality also of what is relevant in India. And if you wish to practice in India, you should understand that what are the challenges which are faced in implementing an international law, or similarly with regards to other moots also, or other competitions also, they're just a means to an end in my belief. Because if a person does not have a clear plan and are just doing moots just for the sake of it, then I would mean that would come and harm you in the end. Because I've seen a lot of people who have done only moots until their fourth year and have not done any internships till then. So, I mean, ideally, if a person will come to me in such an instance and will ask me to recommend them for some internship, I would not be in a position to, because you have not had any experience which would help me convince the other person that you should give this person a chance, no matter how good you have been in moods or something or the other. And as for balancing the competitions come, I believe, I mean, because there are a lot of people who do multiple things simultaneously. I mean, that is what law school is for. It is for you to learn how much you can balance. I mean, a person, while they're doing all these things, they should understand what their limit is. If they can do two things at once, then maybe they should, go ahead with doing moots and internships also. If they feel they're not, it might be too much for them. So in that case, they should just limit themselves. If they're doing moot, then they should just focus on the moot. If they're doing any mediation, negotiation competition, they should focus on that. And if they feel that internship is a more, enriching experience, then they should focus on that. As far as balancing academics comes, I mean, academics is, I mean, see, learning one thing is different. Bookish language does not translate into you being a better lawyer, right? You might be a topper, you might be excellent at academics, but that would not automatically translate your skill into the profession. The profession is something, I mean, that is why it's called practice. It's litigation, all of those things is called practice, right? Everyone is called a practitioner. So these are the skills which people hone over time. Because till the time I started with litigation, I had not done any particular litigation work. So it was going on the job, on the field, and then understanding how the court works, how filing works, what do you have to prepare, what is bookmarking, how important numbering and everything is, and all of those things translate after that. I mean, no matter how much you'll do a moot, if you're in front of a judge, you'll actually get nervous, because a judge is judge and he or she has no time for any nonsense. They want what's to be said at that hearing, and they only want to listen to that particular thing. So it's all up to the person as to how they are able to uh, manage their commitments. They should never overcommit. I mean, when you come to the job, then that is where you understand that you have to understand you have to manage overcommitting and committing in that instance, right? When on a job, you won't have any choice. You'll have to commit, right? But while in law school, you have that option that you can choose the journey you want to undertake. And I mean, it's okay if you do not have a clear plan, because a lot of people who are also doing things until their fifth year or something have a clear plan that I want to go into arbitration, or I want to go into litigation, I want to practice labor law and all of those things. But things change. I mean, speaking from personal experience, I wanted to do arbitration, and I was a big arbitration fiend when I was in law school, and I had written all of my publications and the book and everything. Everything was on arbitration. But then when I actually ended up in the position where I wanted to have a job, I had no other option but to jump at the first offer which I got. Because I mean, realistically, it's different for people who are from the I won't say prestige. Every law school is prestigious in my opinion, but in the eyes of the hiring law firms, the top NLUs do construe the higher chances of conversion into a law firm job. So, I mean, in that instance, even though having an offer letter not offer letter, a recommendation from someone at a top tier law firm, I did not get a job. But so then I was in an instance where, what should I do? So I ended up starting with litigation. And at that point, for 1 year, I still had that, interest in me that I want to do something related to arbitration, but still did not get anything, ended up going to work with a judge and all of those things. So I have done different things in my past 3 to 4 years, from litigation to clerkship to working for a startup, now with an international law firm. So I've done different things, and it has taken me 3 years to finally come to a place where I'm not doing arbitration, but I'm still in a setup where I feel I'm more comfortable with, right? So it's okay to try multiple things in law school, and you should also know, I mean, if you feel something is not good for you, you should not go for it. Personally, I've never done never done moots. So, but I'm still invited to judge law moots, international and domestic. But so it won't mean, it would not be the end of the world if you are only stuck on moots or if you're only stuck on competitions. I believe it's much better to understand a subject rather than learn a subject. Right. So I think that's my 2 cents on it. And balancing, I mean, it's part of life. I'm still balancing everything. I mean, it keeps on going from law school to profession. It just translates from one thing to into the other. So I think a person should just do something that they're comfortable with and take as much as they can, and should not have that feeling of burning out, because if you do have that feeling of burning out, you should just take a break in that instance.
Thank you, sir. That was really a detailed and insightful explanation. So, even many of us have seen you assessing and judging at the prestigious institutions, like even from our members. Pini also had the opportunity to see you at the HPA NLU competition mediation, and then FTI, and even at the NLU Patiala's competition. So, what qualities do you think makes a person stand out from the rest at the competitions?
See, I've seen a lot of people. I mean, if you want to segregate people into introvert and extroverts, uh, so it is a different thing when it comes to competition. And for competition, the only thing which I look for is if the person is able to tackle a situation in a rational manner. So most of my competitions which I assess are mediation and negotiation competition, then it's the moods. So for mediation and negotiation competitions, I look at a person's communication skills, and if they are able to understand what the other person is saying, and if they're able to understand what they are saying. So in simple terms, these competitions, I think from the judge's perspective, we only look for a person who understands what's been put in front of him, right? How you tackle a mood problem and negotiation problem or mediation problem might be different, but all we assessors look for, if you're able to at least in moods you can ask the questions as judges and all. In negotiation competitions, you can't. So I'll just start with negotiation competitions first. So in these competitions, what I basically look for is your body language. I mean, so body language is quite important when it comes to all these competitions. The body language is unilateral, because I think in a recent competition only, I noticed someone who was wearing sneakers, and I just pointed it out. I didn't say that I'll be cutting marks for it, and I didn't. I just told that person that it's okay, I'm not cutting marks, but just to understand, you have to understand that you're representing yourself in a national/international competition. So you have to understand that certain etiquettes come with all of those things, because these are some of these skills which translate into the profession also. You can't go into a court wearing a sneaker or a white shoe or something like that. If a judge notices, they'll really just ask you, I mean, what is that? Right? So you have to dress appropriate to the occasion. So that is one thing which I look for. Then the second thing which I look for is the reaction which you give to the other person. If you are laughing unnecessarily, if some person is suggesting something which is very serious and might be a very good suggestion, and then you are outrightly rejecting those suggestions and all of those things. So I look at the reaction also when it comes to all of these things, because it's imperative that you maintain the decorum of the competition which you're participating in, right? The third thing which I look for is the communication. If you're able to get a point across, no matter if you're stuttering in between, if you're not able to speak properly, the only thing which I look for is how effectively you're able to convey something to the other person. Someone might be making fun of these things, or someone might like it, but I don't regard all of those things. I don't care about all those things. And I think personally judges also just look at a person if they're able to carry themselves and speak effectively what is to be said. That is all that we look for. And because I've seen so many people in competitions who sometimes get nervous and start jumbling words in English. It happens with me also. It can happen with anyone, right? So I always reassure the person that it's fine. that you might have said something wrong in the instance. So don't worry about that, as long as you carry yourself with that confidence. So one of the confidence is also one of the very important things, because if you're confident, then you're able to assess the situation also effectively. So I think these are the few things which I look for when it comes to competitions. I'm sorry, Nishta, you're muted.
So much, sir, for sharing on how one do in a competitions in negotiation.
Mhm.
Sir, pointing out to what skills one required in law school as a person who has entered as a first year or second year, still in a very early phase, and someone who is already in their fourth or fifth year, that they'll be going into a real world. So, what
Mhm.
skills, particular set of skills they need to have?
So I think I'll start with the first year aspect first. So when you're just entering into law school, you're very new, right? Everything seems very fancy to you, and you are just trying to understand, because half of the time people are just looking at each other. They're trying to gel up into a group, or just be part of something where they feel they belong. So in the first instance, first year, I mean, I think just goes by unless you have proper guidance. A lot of people just jump straight into other things where they feel things are cool, right? So I think when it comes to first year, the skills which you might want to touch upon is, I think, maybe start reading up on things which might catch your eye. I mean, let's say, for example, first year people are instructed to go for moot intras and all of those things, and other competition intras. So let's say, I mean, there are certain laws which are prevalent in India. So you might want to get that habit in of, not reading all the time, but at least reading something or the other, and not half-heartedly, because a lot of people just read what's written on the live laws caption, and they just say that I read that at that place, and that is something which is not advisable, because I mean, I've been in those situations where I've had conversation with people where they are claiming something which is not to be which does not exist. I mean, because all these live law and bar and bench captions are all clickbaits. I mean, it's just for you to catch an eye. It's not what written in the judgments. And I've worked with a judge in Delhi High Court to know that what they say in the caption is not the entire picture at all. So I mean, one of the beautiful things which I learned while working with a judge was that there's more to what meets the eye. So the first thing which I'll say is, I mean, it's good to make friends. It's all of those things, but after a while, it's your career on the line and not theirs, right? I mean, if someone is smart enough, they'll push ahead no matter what's happening around them. So one thing which I would suggest to for people who are in their first year is that do not let what others are doing affect you. Try to just focus on your journey, because at the end, law school is for you, right? Not for people around you, no matter whatever things they're doing. If you want to succeed, you have to, I mean, I think it's imperative that you start reading and understanding what's there in law, right? You might eventually start to understand that these are the things which we like, and we like to you know uh, engage in some competition. So this will make your competitions and law school journey also comparatively easier, because if you read and understand what is being taught to you, then I think there's nothing better than that, right? I know it's difficult to do so, because you want to go out with your friends also, you want to enjoy, and all of that happens. I mean, see, it's all part of your life and part of your law school journey. And but I mean, you have ample of time in the day to focus, at least give out 30-40 minutes or an hour to just for yourself, right? After law school gets over at 4 or 5, you have time for an hour. You can go and change, freshen up, and all of those things. You still have time to read something or the other. You can start by reading any novel also by Soli Sorabji or Fali Nariman and all of those things, just to understand how these people were, handling their situation. So maybe through their journey, you might be inspired to do something which, you might be interested in. Because, uh, uh, because I feel it's very important to get that reading habit in early. Because after a while, a lot of juniors have come to me through how to do this, how to do that. And the only suggestion which I have at that point is that you have to open the judgment and read what's said inside that. Right. Even while if let's say that if there's a judgment in on arbitration on setting aside of an arbitral award, on the face of it, that's what it looks like. But when you're reading the petition, you understand the dynamics of arbitration. You understand what has happened in arbitration, why the petition has come to be, what are the challenges there have been. And if there's a question of just setting aside, there's not just a question of setting aside of the arbitral award. There are multiple things to consider while you're setting aside an arbitral award. And that is a job of the judge that the judge has to do. They have to not only you know propagate on what has been said in the petition, they have to go above and beyond. So similarly, I would say even a law student has to go above and beyond to understand what is there in law, right? This way, even when you are sitting for any interviews or if you're sitting for uh, any law school activity, you might feel more confident to engage in a discussion, right? There are some people who are confident enough to ask a question, some who are not. I would nudge the person to just go out of their comfort zone slightly. Because personally, I mean, right now you might be looking at me and you might be thinking a nerd or something like that. But honestly, I was a big sports person when I was in law school, and I've never done anything remotely, close to any uh, debates and all of those things. So any intellectual competitions I've never done. My first experience was in law school. I just wanted to go and see and experience it for myself. And once I did, and I went into a competition when these mediation and negotiation competition had just started. So there was no proper guidance also as to how it's supposed to be done. I think I did not even have an opening statement prepared when I went for the competition. It all happened while we were at the competition. I mean, it was I realized that there was a huge change in myself when I was at the competition, that I actually wanted to do something for myself and I wanted to push beyond what I've done so far. And for once, just back myself. One thing which people usually lack is the confidence to back themselves. They have that doubt, and they focus more on the results than the journey. So I would suggest don't focus on the results, but you have to take that step forward. I mean, you have to, you know, take that one step forward, which would allow you to, be more confident in yourself. And I think that would be my advice to first year. And as for fourth year students, because I think I'm speaking strictly for the 5-year course right now. I'm personally from the 3-year course, but a 5-year course, I know there's a journey that you have to undertake. You have to do something, some BA or BCom, or those subjects also, English and all of those things you have to study. But then I think when it comes to fourth year is where your proper legal subjects actually start. And that is where I feel is your moment to shine, right? Because third year onwards, you can get a feeling of what you actually like and what you don't. And subsequently, by the time you're in your fourth year, if you have that clarity, you should ideally be focusing on the job that you want to see yourself in, right? You have to start behaving that way. I mean, if I want to intern at a tier one law firm, I have to start behaving in a manner and start working and putting in the efforts in a manner that, would translate into a job. Because I think that is the difference between people who get a job and don't. If people treat it like an internship, they'll treat you like an intern. But if you show that inclination that I'm willing to go above and beyond of what is there, right? Then the person who's interviewing you or who's working with you might be more inclined to give you more work, right? See, luck and everything plays a big factor in all of these things. I agree. But I personally feel, I mean, if that was the case, if luck was the only primary factor, then I would never have gotten a job at any given point of time, right? Because in that case, I'm the most unlucky person in the world. But I knew that I had that capability in myself, and I pushed above and beyond and spoke to multiple people at once and kept on speaking to people, networking, connecting on LinkedIn, sending out emails, with no response whatsoever. But I still kept on trying because I knew if I could, just get one thing to stick, it will work out. So I was not just focusing on what is to be the end result, that I want a tier one job or something like that. I just wanted something to give me a push. So in that instance of fourth year, it's very important that you have to, because that is the time that your career is made, right? Ideally, law firms hire when you're in your fourth year. If you do not have that plan of being placed in a law firm, if you have other plans, if you're still figuring things out, in that case, I would suggest that, read up on the things which interest you. Because by the time in your fourth and fifth year, you would understand that if you like civil commercial matters or civil commercial law more, or if you like criminal law more, right? So in those instances, you have to get well versed with the dynamics of those laws. If there's a civil commercial law, it's related to CPC and the Commercial Courts Act. So all of these things, you would have to understand that at what instances what is to be done, right? How something is made. Maybe talk to someone in the profession, network with someone, maybe seek their guidance as to what they're doing, how they're doing. Strike a conversation on something which they have a mutual interest in. If, let's say, when I was in law school, I used to connect with people who were arbitration practitioners, and I used to send them messages and not ask for internships and all of those things. I used to ask them as to what are they doing, and if they have written something, an article or a paper, I used to engage in a discussion in that instances as to how did you come across this topic and what was your thought process behind all of those things. So I was more interested in understanding the person than asking them for a internship outrightly. So I think it's important that fourth year student also start connecting with people who they feel they have more common interests with. And I think it's not just that. I mean, common interest also is fine, but you can also connect with other people who might be in IPR if you want to understand something in IPR law or something like that, or maybe sports and entertainment law or media law. Because in law school, people usually feel there are only two ways: it's either litigation or jobs. But honestly, let me tell you, there are multiple jobs out there which a person might be more comfortable in, and something they might excel in down the line also, right? Because I had that image that I wanted to be an arbitration practitioner, and now working with an international law firm, and I don't practice anymore, and I'm working and I'm completely providing transaction assistance to the international firms, international offices of Clifford Chance, and it's a completely different thing which I'm doing altogether, right? So I've worked with a startup. I've done business development also for a startup. So that is basically effectively sales for a company. And I've done clerkship with a judge, which is completely different altogether. It's working on the bench side of things. I've done litigation. So I've experienced all of these things, which is why I'm able to say that I would also recommend that do not get lost if you feel you're not getting the job of your choice, right? Because sometimes things come to you when you least expect it. Because there was a moment in law school not in law school, while I was working, where I left my job for 2 months completely. I was feeling burnt out because every time I left a job, it was basically on the last day, and I was joining the job on the very next day. So after a while, I just thought that, maybe I'm doing too much, and, it's not working out for me. So at that instance, I took a break, and I realized that, sometimes it's better to take a step back, reflect on what is it actually that you want. If you want to focus on yourself, you focus on yourself. If you want to focus on your family or friends around, you just do that. But take a break, right? Because I think a lot of people, I've interacted with a lot of fourth and fifth year students where they feel that how did that person get the job and not me, right? Because in those instances, you have to be literally like a horse. You should not look at other people, and you should be focused on yourself. If you're not able to get a job, then I would suggest that, read and write and publish. That would be my suggestion for fourth year students, especially. At least keep yourself busy and get knowledge of the topics which you are interested in. If you know you are better than the other person, then prove that to yourself first rather than proving it to other people, right? And I think fourth year is the high time where you should start focusing on internships rather than competitions. Because a lot of people do sometimes, end up doing competitions and then miss out on internships and then say that I did not get a job even though I'm the more talented person. In that instances, you are the person who are in the wrong, because you have to know that in the end, international competitions are just international competition. They do not translate to a job in India, right? Unless you're focusing for an international masters or something, those moods and everything do not bring any value to a person's CV. Because I told you that I did not do any moods, but when I interned at a tier one law firm, the only thing the person noticed while I was giving my interview was that I've done publications. So they were impressed by that. So I would suggest, rather than doing moods, you should focus on reading and writing something, because if you're in the profession, you're writing at any given point anyway, right? Be it writing a petition or be it writing a notice or anything, you have to get creative with words. So you have to start that practice in early, that you just get comfortable with the language which is to be there, right? So that is something which I would recommend to fourth year students, that start focusing on the subjects that are of your interest. And no, don't just limit yourself to one subject or something. Let's say I was never guided, so that's why I'm able to say all these things, that I was only focusing on arbitration. So there was an instance where I had gone to give an interview, and the person started asking me for what is IBC and all of those things, and my law school did not have those subjects, and literally I had no clue that it was part of the dispute resolution practice. So you have to understand that dispute resolution is a vast domain, and you have to know something or the other which is happening in those topics. I mean, it's not like you have to know everything, but you have to know something so that the other person knows that you have the aptitude for it. That is something which helps you and get a job. So you have to brush up on those skills. You have to brush up on interview skills, and you have to understand that sometimes it's always the extra effort which will count, right? So that will be my suggestion to fourth year student.
Thank you so much, sir. Actually, being in my initial phases of law school itself, the point that you mentioned about reading, that is something even I need to reflect upon, because something when I go for a competition, when I feel that having read about additional articles would be a gain to that. So that is something a lot of us in the meeting should be looking at. And for the fourth year as well, we have a lot of people from fourth and their fifth years, and even graduates. So I think this is the advice that you gave about publication, about connecting with people, will really help them. And also, sir, you mentioned about how you work at various some as a clerkship and then at firm as well. So how did you navigate the shift from law school to practice, and what was the surprising aspect that you faced in that shift?
I think in a way, COVID was a blessing for me, because until COVID hit, I was again focusing, like I said, I was focusing on my peers and planning on going for competitions as a trip, and I was not primarily looking after what I should do in my career. But once I went for the competition, I came back, COVID hit and everything happened. So after that, I think it was, I was having a lecture with Mr. Tariq Khan, who's the registrar of IMC right now. And he's a very good personal friend and now, but at that moment he was a professor at my college. And we were having a class on arbitration, and he was asking questions on arbitration. And since I was so invested in arbitration, I was effectively the only person who was answering his questions. So there was an instance where there was a judgment of NAFID versus Elementa SA, which was on the, public policy question of Section 34. So he asked the question that would someone want, would want to do and write a case brief. So that is where my journey actually began. And again, I had no idea how to write a case brief. So I looked things up and I went above and beyond and asked, other people as to how a case brief is written. I first read upon a lot of case brief, and then I read upon the judgment. And that is where my journey of publication all started. And my very first publication was, published on SCC Online. So during COVID, I went a lot into, that I have to gain certain experiences, and I started reaching out to people and I started doing internships, even though all of them were virtual, but that is where I actually got the real experience of what is to be done in the profession. I was given to write a statement of claim and all of those things. So I understood, that okay, this is something which is very different altogether. It's not as easy as writing a research paper. This has to be precise and it has to be backed by facts, which are not legal facts, but the facts of the case. So these are the skills which I recognized were needed at that instances. I used to discuss, in regular conversation with professionals, and I used to take their advice as to what all things they have done and what was their journey. And that is where I realized that it's okay that if you're not having clarity of what is to be done. So that is where I sought, sort of, I would say, I think the questions answer to my questions that, it's okay to not have any clarity. So I initially wanted to go into law firms and I kept on trying, but it was slightly difficult to get into law firms. So then I started reaching out to people who can actually help me navigate as to what is to be done. So I spoke to people I knew and my friends, and they connected me to people, and then they guided me that, that maybe you should, right now focus on just reading or something or the other or recent developments, and you should keep on applying on the side, right? So while I was doing that, I got the opportunity to work in litigation, though it was not something which I wanted to do, but I thought, why not? I mean, so far, nothing which I planned was working out for me. So let's just give litigation a try. And subsequently, I started litigation. I mean, I liked the thrill of, going to courts and working with working on different matters, going to labor commissions, going to Lok Adalat, going to different district courts and High Court and Supreme Court. So all of those things. So I enjoyed that period, and that is where I realized the first thing which I told to you, I think mentioned here, was that it's okay to try different things when you're doing something. After a while, then I wanted to take it up a level, and I think it took me 10 months to find a job for clerkship, because I was still chasing that journey of working in a law firm, and I wanted to get a judge's recommendation to work in a law firm. So I started again, reaching out to multiple people as to if how I can get a clerkship, and I work with a judge in Delhi High Court. And again, as luck would have it, my judge was a recently elevated judge, and she did not have any per se people she knew in the law firm fraternity. So, but then I still, worked with her, and at that instances, I was working on revenue matters. I was working on promotional matters where disciplinary committee and all of those were involved. But I later on realized that, there's just not just one thing which is there in the profession. There's so many things. And we were working on different matters every day. We had to brief the judge orally every day. So that is where my skills refined of, briefing a judge and how to read a case file, because sometimes you do not realize that it's how important it is to understand how to read a case file. Because when you have to brief, let's say if you're in the profession, you have to brief a senior advocate the very next day, and you get the file at midnight or something, you have to pick up the relevant points and brief the senior in the morning. And that is how we used to do. We used to take 40 matters every day personally, 40 matters each, and then brief the judge in Delhi High Court on a daily basis. And we used to sit till 1-2 at night and brief her every day. So that is how I got the clerkship job, where I was, running around for 10 months. By the time I used to reach from my office to the court, the position used to be filled. So it was very easy for me to be demotivated, but still I was like, something has to be done. I can't just sit, being demotivated, because it's very easy to give into the negative aspects of things, right? Like, ye to ho hi nahi raha, this is not happening for me. So in those instances, you will be very easily feeling like giving up, but it's more difficult for you to move, keep moving forward. So that is where, I think your personal desire to do something comes into picture. You have to be motivated enough that you should not let anything happening around you, to stop you. So you have to keep going no matter what, because something or the other down the line will work out. If you want to get a job at a certain place, you might end up getting a similar job at a different place, right? Because sometimes what appears on the face of it does not really translate. So that is what happened. And then I worked with a startup, and in the startup, I was doing client acquisition for the startup. It was a legal startup. So somewhat I was related to the profession. A lot of people came up to me that you're not doing something which is a legal job. So at that place, I was, working on contracts, a singular contract on a daily basis, but I was negotiating with clients every day. I was reaching out to people, I was crafting strategies, and I was negotiating with different kinds of people, MNCs, big international companies also, or even a small operation, a sole proprietorship. So I was just negotiating with different kinds of people. So when I used to discuss with people, they were like, "This is not a legal job." Then I used to ask them a question: "What do you think a lawyer does? Does not a practicing lawyer would be negotiating in court, right? They would be representing their client at the courts and representing their interests. What I'm doing is representing my company's interest in front of the client." Right, the prospective client, and I'm negotiating with them. I'm getting something done for their behalf and for my client's behalf, right? So smallest of skills would also, work. I mean, even the smallest of skill does make you a lawyer, because someone or people around you might be saying that you're not a lawyer, but if you have that confidence in yourself that I know what I'm doing, and and if you know what you're doing, and then you can convince the other person also that that for me I'm doing something related to law. You might think it's not, but for me it is, right? So there's not just one way of being a lawyer, right? There are multiple ways of being a lawyer. So I think that was my I mean, I think that was a motivation to keep going no matter what was happening. And I used to leave a job if I was unhappy. I used to leave that job, right? Because I have changed multiple jobs in the last few years. Someone would say that it is not advisable, but I always tell a person that if you feel that is not working out for you, you should be confident enough to back yourself that you will get another job, right? That is how I also got different jobs at different places. If that was the case, that I did not have the skills or anything, I would not have gotten the job. But I backed myself that if I feel this is not adding to my career, or it is not helping me grow, then there's no point in sticking out at a place, because that would affect your mental health also. So it's very important that you balance your mental health more than your physical health in that instance, because if you're not well mentally, then physical health also starts taking a toll, right? So it's very important for you to balance those things out. And that is how I left my job for 2 months. And then I focused on only two companies, and out of which I got into one, which is the place I'm working right now. Right. And it had 6, 7 rounds of interviews. And at no given point was I allowing the other person to see if I'm nervous or something like that. Right. It is very important for you to take control of the interview rather than letting the other person take control of you.
So I think this is what makes you truly special, that how you navigated and explored the magic of life, and simultaneously,
Thank you.
navigating the challenges and with all the spirits and still the single mind and focus. So thank you for sharing your beautiful journey and sharing it so beautifully. So sir, the next question that we have right now is related
Mhm.
to the litigation experience that you had at the High
Mhm.
Court, your
Right.
recent case. So could you share the challenges you faced there and ultimately how it turned out?
Okay, I think I know the case you're talking about. It's the recent case which I shared on LinkedIn, right?
Yes, sir.
Right. So I'll just start with briefing about what the case was all about and how it came to be. So I think it was my colleague and I, we were walking back from High Court, I believe, and we came across two couples who were actually, very distraught. And I think we were the only two people around at that point of time, call it fate or something. So they came and they spoke to us that, we are aggrieved that their son had passed away, and uh, before his treatment and everything started, he passed away due to testicular cancer. But before his treatment had started, they had preserved his semen, and they had kept it in an IVF lab. So it was a Delhi government hospital which had preserved this semen, and they wanted to, access that, and they wanted to try to have another kid, because the son was their only sole kid which was there. So that is when we actually set up a meeting, and then we asked them to meet up at our offices. And when they came to us, they asked that, they wish to access the semen and they wish to use it to have another baby. Now, the problem in this instance was that there's no case laws which states that the parent can access semen of a person, of their deceased son. If there's a existing wife, then only then the right goes to the wife. And there was only one High Court judgment, a Calcutta High Court judgment, which said that. So when we filed the petition, we really had nothing to go upon law-wise. It was just a plea of emotion that we were trying to portray at that instance, and we were very scared that the case might be dismissed, because writ petitions are not admitted so easily if you're not able to prove a valid point. But I think when we were arguing the very admission of the writ petition, I think one of the reasons why the writ petition got admitted, because I think the council from the union government came and said that they had no objection to the petition being allowed. And I think that was one of the reasons why the petition got admitted. So I think we got lucky at the very first instance in that regard. After all, when you move forward in a case, so there are multiple stages on which the High Court functions. The very first thing which happens in a High Court case is the question of admissibility of the petition or the case which you're filing. The next, the instances which comes is for the other parties to file a reply. So when we received the replies of the union government and the Delhi government, we came across strong objection that there are no case laws which support your stance, and nothing is to be there. And the parents were also actually 65 to 70 years old. So there was a lot of question as to who will raise the child if it's born, right? Because by the time child is born and everything, the parents might or might not be there. And who will raise the who will raise the child, right? If the parents die. So these were a lot of valid points which were raised by the respondents in this. So hi, Rohit, I'll just reply to questions at the end. I believe in that instances, what we were trying to portray was that, even the parents have a right? Because at the end of the day, it was his child. And as per Hindu succession law, if there's no wife or anything, the parents, get the automatic right to claim what is their son's. So this was a picture we were trying to portray at that instance. And when we were looking for case laws, we only came across one case law, which I mentioned, which stated that, Calcutta High Court judgment, which said the wife would be getting the right to claim the semen of her deceased husband. So in this instance, we started to look beyond of what is to be there, and we started to look at New York, and we started to look at US and Europe, where IVF laws are more prevalent, and things like that happens there on a daily basis. So we came across certain guidelines of a European Commission, and we came across a judgment of New York, and certain news glimpses of a Lok Adalat allowing the same. So these were the things which we put into as evidence. So that is the next stage after you get the reply and you file the rejoinder. This is the documentation stage, and after that you come across the evidence stage, where you file your written evidence before the court. So as the petitioner, we were the first one to file our written submissions before the court, and on the basis of that written submissions, we constantly argued that this is something. We ended up taking the stance of that this is something which is borderline on principles of natural justice, and not allowing someone to claim, because what they want to do at the end of the day, it's their choice, right? We can't control, even if we are the government or anything, we can't control a person, or we cannot conceal a person's right. So this was what became a sole stance, that you're violating on the fundamental rights of a parent, where you're not allowing them to claim what is theirs technically. So that is what we were arguing before the court, and there was strong objection from the government at all times. But luckily, I think at the end of the day, it ended up, being passed in our favor, and the judgment was allowed by Justice Jyoti Singh in our favor. So I think at the end of the day, it was, a blessing in that regards. And the challenges, it might seem easy, but we changed 2 senior advocates in the course of the argument, because sometimes you have to know how to play to the courts you are appearing before, right? If we were using one senior advocate in the beginning, we knew that this senior advocate might not be more effective in front of that particular judge. So we ended up briefing another senior counsel, another senior advocate who actually argued the matter till the end, Suruchi ma'am. So I mean, she was also very intelligent, and he was able to, somehow convince the judge more than the senior advocate we were briefing before. So, that is also something which you should also understand, because the parties were very aggrieved as to, the petitioners, they were very aggrieved at is what is to be done. Because for them, they were willing to spend as much money as they wanted to, but they just want what's theirs. And that is what the court decreed at the end of the day, that you cannot curtail someone else's right because, they want to do something or the other. It's their choice at the end of the day. And if they want to have a kid through IVF means or whatever means, it's their choice. The government cannot control that.
Thank you so much, sir, for sharing the challenges. And from the chat box, we can see the next question that people have is, sir, is this mandatory कि corporate में job करने के लिए NLU से study किया हो? Or the follow-up is that
for corporates, I would say no. Technically, what my place is also a corporate only, because international law firms cannot practice in India. So it's technically a corporation only. And one thing which I've realized for corporates is that it's slightly more difficult than getting into law firms, because for corporates, the openings are not, primarily available very easily. You have to be, rather than LinkedIn, I would suggest you start looking at naukri.com, because, and then you see what are the qualifications that they require. Very few corporations have that, scope of hiring a fresher, because EY and all are, it's completely different. It's a consulting role which you are in EY and Deloitte and KPMG. But for corporates, they require more with regards to your experience and what skills do you have, rather than, having that tag of NLU and not. Right. For law firms, that is more relevant. Law firms tend to prefer, it's just how if someone, if you guys have seen Suits, how they show that, they only hire from Harvard. That is the basically, the same translation here, which happens because they want to show to their stakeholders that they're hiring only from the prestigious colleges, right? But that does not mean that people from, non-NLU background or private colleges do not get placed, right? OP Jindal students get the highest placement in our country. It's a different thing that they're, the fees and everything is different, but I'm just making a point that it's not just relevant that you only have to go to an NLU. If you have that relevant skills and if you're working hard at the internship, you'll be able to, garner the attention, because at the end of the day, you have to show what work you're doing. If you're not vocal about what work you have done, you might not be noticed. So it's very important that you're vocal when you're interning. Do not make the mistake of not having that interaction with the partner you're working. Just try one way or the other that you get an interaction in with the partner, and you just show to the partner that you'll be a value addition to his team, because at the end of the day, you'll be working with him. Because there are a lot of people who are not vocal about what work they're doing, and if someone else on your team, a different intern, is vocal, then they'll be more likely to be placed than you. So it's not important that to work in a corporate or something you are from an NLU background. It's an added advantage, but I won't say that it's the only thing which happens. So I would say just be vocal about your work when you're interning, and make sure that you do a thorough job and not just limit yourself to what is being done or what is being given to you. Make sure you ask for work and show some initiative when you're interning. Make sure you have that inclination that, I want to work. Then in that case, the person will start relying on you, because they know that you are the inquisitive kind and you want to work. You have that zeal and desire within you. So they'll be more likely. That's how subconsciously people who mark work, works. It happens for everyone. Even when someone used to come to me and then they used to ask questions constantly when I was interning in my team. So I used to give them work rather than, to someone who's not interested in getting the work.
Thank you so much, sir, for answering this. Next question we have is from Ishani. She is asking that which is the right year to start with the internship? And adding on the same, our other question is that how should one utilize the BEAR Act in the academics? Thank you.
BEAR Act in the academics, see, the curriculum is designed in a different manner at different law schools, right? So what is being taught is not the only thing. Sometimes a college's or a university's curriculum is outdated, right? They might not be explaining you to what is happening from the relevant act and not, right? So to translate that into real skill, first of all, I would suggest that if there's, let's say, if you're reading something on IPC, right? If it's, maybe something about 302 and 304 culpable homicide and murder. So in order to understand that, you would have to read judgments on those topics, right? That is how you actually understand how law translates into real life, right? That is how you gain command over because every subsection has a different meaning in every place, right? If I'm to say something about arbitration, every single perspective, and it gives parties different power. And that is what my suggestion would be, that if you're reading something, if you're reading a particular section, go to SEC online or live or Manupatra and just read something on those lines of what is said on the judgment, or maybe just read some research paper as to what a person has written about that. So that is how you will understand what actually is said in the Bare Act, because that is how you gain command over the language of the Bare Act. And as for internships, I would suggest that the first 2 year you can start off with certain articles internship. I mean, there are a lot of people who offer article writing internships and content creation. So you can start off with that. By the time second year, you have gained certain command over certain topics. So at least you have something to write on your CV that you were working on certain aspects of law. And that is on the basis of that you can start off, start applying to internships at this, the latter half of your second year, when you are in your fourth semester or something like that. That is where you can start applying in advance, because it's very important to apply in advance for internship and not expect to get an internship right at the very next day, right? Law firms and all of these places, even chambers and all good chambers or advocates get applications on a daily basis through LinkedIn and all of those people. There are people who are very smart, who know how to use, the connection that they have. So it's very important that you apply in advance and you apply to the relevant person. So one of the reasons why I got an internship at Khaitan is because I applied to an arbitration partner over there. And the basis which I took for the cover letter was that, I read your article online and it was very interesting. And I've read all of your articles and all of those things. And I actually read all of his articles. So I used that as the breaking point that, I have interest in arbitration. I've read your articles and I would be happy to get an internship experience at Khaitan and Company. And I would be happy if I could, get your assistance. So that is how I wrote to him, and he replied within an hour, which is, again, it was something which I did not expect, but he did. And that is how I got set up with an interview at Khaitan for internship. And that is how I ended up getting an internship there. And there are a lot of people who fail the interview aspect also. It's important to clear interview at Khaitan to get an internship there. So I think that is how you should, a second year a person in their initial year should start, applying and approaching for internship. And you can start off with, internship at an AOR also. And AOR offers a lot of, wealth of experience, because AOR appears in Supreme Court on a daily basis and they have personal matters of their own at different courts also. So at AOR is where you actually learn how to draft, because they're drafting on a daily basis. They get paid for their drafting skills only. So you can actually learn a lot of things when you are working with AOR. Similarly, if you're at a district court, you'll get to learn how a district court works. So the different skills you can acquire at different courts. And so there's no right place. You can actually work with any person you want and you can get that, started. And do not expect any pay. So I mean, be prepared for that, because I think that's how the profession works. There are very few places that pay. But I think it's more important to focus on the learning rather than, that I'm spending so much time in traveling and all of those things. I travel from Noida to Gurgaon on a daily basis for my job. So it's something you have to do anyway.
Thank you so much, sir. The next question we have is from Niharika. She's asking how to make connection, and especially when you are a non-NLU student.
See, even I'm a non-LED student, but I've made a lot of connections, in this profession through that reason only, that, I was I just shut that afraid part of myself and I just started reaching out to people shamelessly. I mean, something you have to do. The only thing I'll say is that you have to make sure that you're approaching in a very respectable and a professional manner. You don't appear to be someone who's just, writing gibberish and just sending a message, right? So it's very important that you start off with a conversation starter, right? Something, if you can just maybe stalk that person's LinkedIn profile and understand what he or she is doing. And if something catches your eye, maybe just start off a conversation with that I actually read this with regards to that. And I was also reading on this personally, and I came across this topic, and I wish to have a discussion with you sometime if you're available. So, I mean, that's just one way I'm just suggesting. So be smart as to how you're approaching, and be ready to, get zero responses also, because I've had so many people who have not responded also. But out of 100, at least 10 would reply, and those 10 are all you need, right? Those 10 would be your connection and would help you get an internship and all of those things. I remember, I think when I had just started my law school journey, my mom was at a fest or a mela, I would say, or something like that, where people display their uh, goods and everything. So my mom had taken a stall there. So I went to visit her, and somehow someone next to me was also selling certain products. And I don't know how the conversation started. My mom was talking to the other lady, and then I overheard that person saying that my daughter is a lawyer. And that is the moment when I got up and I went to introduce myself, that my name is Dhruv, and I would like to have your number, and I would like to discuss things with you. And she was working in a tier 2 law firm, and it's a very big law firm. For the tag name, it was tier 2, but it's still a very big law firm. And I knew she was, at a tier 2 law firm, but I did not ask her for an internship outrightly. At the first, I think for the 1.5 year when I spoke to her, I was just strictly talking to her about things which I should do, and how should I approach things. If I'm doing this, what should I do? If I was participating in a competition, I asked her, Ki, this is something which I'm doing. Is my correct approach correct? Should I revise my approach? Is my understanding correct? So I used to ask her questions. So I was not rushing things with regards to, just asking her for an internship, because you have to know the right moment to ask for an internship also. That is something which you understand when you're having a conversation. Because when people text me outrightly that they want to do internship there and that, I don't find that to be very professional. I mean, at least make an effort to get to know the person first, I would suggest, right? And do not ask for a favor outrightly, because why would someone favor you than someone they know? Right? They would be more inclined to help someone get an internship or even a job if that is the person they know, right? That is what actually happens. Because for today, if I say I've known Nishta, and Nishta comes to me that I want to work somewhere and I want to intern somewhere, could you help me? I would be more inclined to help her than a person who's messaging you on LinkedIn. Isn't that correct, right? Obviously. So I would first say get to know the person, make a conversation with her. If that person is doing arbitration, discuss on arbitration, that this is something which I'm reading. Could you help me refine my approach as to how should I go about reading on arbitration, or how should I understand or interpret the Bail Act? So there are various questions which a person can ask. So that is something which I would suggest. It's not just that NLU students do it. NLU students who are in committees have better options, because they interact with, judges who come on a daily basis, and you have to go and interact with the person first. It's not that the NLU students have preference. It's because NLU students go the extra mile to, get to interact with the person. They know how important interaction is. That is why they are the ones who are getting internship rather than people from non-NLU, because they feel they are from non-NLU. That's not the case. It's only because people from NLU on a daily basis are juggling various things at once, right? Not to take anything away from students from NLU, they work very, very hard, and they make sure that they interact with the person and get to know the person, right? And it's that, like, connections are more important. Like, there are a lot of people from NLUs who just speak to me. They have never once asked me for a favor. They know that what value do I have, and they just speak to me because they know that I might be in a situation at one given point of time where I might be in a situation to help them. Right. So it's that those are more important. So don't be afraid of getting rejection or negative responses or no responses. You have to go there and connect to anyone and everyone and start with a conversation. Just have a discussion with that person. Many people are bad at replying to messages, so they might not check, messages also. Right. But some or the other person might reply. And that is all you need to get started, because that one person might know more people. If you want to, he might be able to, or he or she might be able to connect you to more people. So that would be my suggestion for that.
Thank you so much, sir, for addressing it in such a great depth and detail. So before we ask, we have another couple of questions. Would it accommodate with your schedule?
Yeah, no problem. I mean, if the participants in the session don't have problem with the long answers, so I don't have problem giving any answers to their questions also. I
Thank
mean,
you so much.
anyway, I mean, all of you who want to discuss with me personally can connect with me on LinkedIn. And if you wish to have a call discussion, then I'll be happy to share my number with you over LinkedIn, and then we can have a call or something like that. Or I'll just drop my message number in the message, and you can connect with me personally. But yeah, I don't mind answering good questions.
Thank you so much, sir. Sukhman, please go ahead.
Thank you so much, sir. The next question we have is from Shekhar. He's a second year student and he's interning in a technology based company that deals with low end technology known as OpenAI. So his question is whether it is beneficial for him to intern there.
See, I would, from that, from a rational answer or rational perspective, I would say yes, because OpenAI is something which is an up and coming field, and you never know, how big it will become, and it is destined to become big, right? Right now, you might be feeling that it's not something which is worthwhile and all of those things, but sometimes you have to stick around and just wait for the negative thoughts to pass, and that is where I mean, maybe you are right now focusing on the fact that other people are doing something else or working with practitioners, or I would say that, just because you're working in a tech place, it doesn't mean that you're not, doing something which is very important. Down the line, you never know, you might be hired as a tech expert in a very big corporation, which might pay you more than, even law firms pay in India. Because the scope of these places are infinite. There are a lot of places which have started using AI as their tool, and they specifically hire people who have interest in legal tech and all of those things. And there are not many of those going around. So I would say that, back yourself in this instance and learn whatever their tool is and be the best legal tech lawyer there is.
Thank you so much, sir. The next question we have is from Akhila. That is, why do law students often struggle to balance the theoretical knowledge with the practical aspect?
Sorry? I didn't catch the question.
Yes, sir. So she's asking, why do law students have to often struggle while balancing the theoretical knowledge with the practical applications?
See, because when it comes to practicality, you have to bend the law as per what you want, right? You have to use the language of the Bear Act to your advantage. And that is why I suggest that what is written in the language of the Bear Act is not what is done in law, right? People use even the slightest of commas or a full stop to their advantage, right? Might and shall also has different meanings. So every word is interpreted in a different way. And if there's subsection and all those things involved, so you have to read different things and not just one particular aspect of that particular section. That is why people struggle to translate that into reality and practice, because law is not appears on the books. It's what's done on the practice before the courts. You have to make sure that using the scope of the language provided to you, because that is what is at play. People call lawyers craftsmen of the language when it comes to it, because they know how to use the language against the other person. If I say something today before the court, if it's recorded, that the other person can use that against me at the very next hearing or something like that, that this is what you only said, right? This is what you said the law is supposed to be interpreted. And now I found something which says the same thing, but in a different manner. But now you can't deny because you have already taken that stance, right? So that is where and that is why people struggle.
Thank you so much, sir. The next question we have is from Preeni. She is asking, the person who haven't ever written a paper, so how should one start writing, like effective writing?
So how I did that was I spoke to a senior of mine who had written publications and all, and I spoke to him that, I want to write something on this topic. And he said, okay, let's collaborate. And start, like, I think 7 to 8 of my publications in the beginning were with someone or the other. And I was just working with someone else, and gaining from their experience as to what is the approach of a paper should be, and it's something which you get better with every time, right? I'm sure my latest publication would be much better than what I wrote at the very first given situation. So maybe start off, if you wish, you can connect with someone and you can ask them either to co-author or maybe just guide you as to how an approach should be of an article, right? I read a lot of articles in that instances also, and I sort of gave myself a visualization as to how an approach of a article should be, right? So that is something which would help your insights when you're writing a paper. So it's not that people who have never written something can't write. Even I had never written anything, or I've never published anything. When I wrote for the very first time, I realized that that it's not as difficult as it sounds. It's just you have to make sure that it's a presentable situation that you're saying, and you're just not just saying, or you're jumping from A to Z. You're just taking A, B, C, D, E. You're taking every step, and you're explaining everything in a proper manner. So I think that is what's more important. You can start off writing individually. Also, you can just ask a person to guide you as to how to write something, or you can maybe co-author with someone as to who can help you guide also, that that maybe this is what we should do and this is what our approach should be, so that you understand how to write something in the very beginning.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you everyone for those excellent questions. Sir, your responses, they have provided us with a clearer perspective on the journey through the law school and beyond. And I'm very sure that everyone here has gained a valuable guidance from today's discussion, and we deeply appreciate your time and expertise. Now, as we draw this session to close, let us take a moment to reflect on the journey through the law school and its many challenges and opportunities. As Sir has already shared the insight and highlighted the importance of the strategic planning and continuous learning, these qualities are essential not only for the academic success, but also for building a meaningful career in field of law. I would like to extend a warm thanks to the whole team of our PLRC for organizing this session and introducing us to Advocate Dhruv Srivastava. And for those interested, please do check the impactful work of the PLRC has been doing. Visit our LinkedIn page and subscribe to our newsletter. Lastly, thank you so much everyone for your active participation and engagement, and we hope this webinar has given you the practical insights and the inspiration as you navigate your own journey in law school. Have a wonderful day everyone. Everyone is requested to please fill out the feedback form that is there in the chat box. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining.
Thank you, Nishtha. Thank you, Preeni. Thank you, Sukman, and thank you, Pavan. Have a good day. Bye-bye.